Welcome to the Nova and Boba podcast where we spill the startup tea. So, Alex, are you ready to spill the tea?
I'm ready.
Okay, brilliant. Alex, I love what you're doing at Thrad AI. So, I was talking to my friend, I was like, I've got a really cool guest coming on. She's the chief of staff at a really cool company. And it's actually the first angel investment I've ever made. And they are essentially helping advertisers advertise in ChatGPT. And I thought she'd be like super excited, like, wow. But she wasn't. She was like, is this late stage capitalism final boss? Like, why do we need a company like that? So, Alex, what would you say to a girl like her?
I would say that she's not the first one to say this. Usually it is, Gen Z users who kind of say, we hate ads. Why are ads showing up in our conversations? Which makes sense. I'm Gen Z. I'm also a user of AI. I wouldn't want bad ads or just ads that are irrelevant to show up. What we're doing is basically fixing that. Everyone at the company hates bad ads, and we hate ads showing up in irrelevant context. If you're on Instagram, you are constantly context switching. That means that your algorithm is bombarded with like things that have nothing to do with each other. That means that ads might show up in places where you wouldn't necessarily care. So you won't engage with the ad the same way that it was meant to be engaged with. What we're doing is that we're doing ads in AI. So in your conversations, when you're talking about something that is relevant to that ad being served. So if you're there talking about a problem, I know that my friends, all of us, just always go to AI when we need a quick fix or a solution. And if I have a product that's actually relevant to me in that conversation, it actually is something that's quite good. So good ads, good products, good brands showing up to help users. And it's also a way to, of course, monetize for the publishers, for the AI companies, for them to monetize is, of course, via ads. So you either pay a subscription that's $80 or you can't pay it, but then you don't have access to the full product, or you actually pay via ads.
So you don't think people are against ads, you think they're against bad ads.
100%.
So what are some of the best ads you've ever seen?
We actually were looking at this yesterday for a hackathon that we're hosting next week. I don't know if you've seen just Instagram or LinkedIn or even TikTok. Sometimes they'll clip like really cool videos of ads. I love
I've seen
So I think everyone can relate to like when ads are done well, they're done well. So like Gap, for instance, with Cat's Eye, loved that ad. That was like iconic. Skims, really good ads as well. JD now is doing good ads.
Is it?
Vinted. So I think those are cool, fun ads. We, of course, won't give you a static, boring ad. We have different ad formats in chats. So that means that, the advertiser can decide if they want to do a sponsored poll, a sponsored carousel, even a sponsored prompt. And those are just fun ways for the users to engage with the actual product. So, yeah.
Brilliant. So you're working within advertising at the moment, and you actually, from what I understand from your LinkedIn, you've not had, a previous sort of corporate job. You went from uni, you did a master's around AI, and you've just gone straight into this company. And how did you become, chief of staff at a startup without sort of any experience?
Yeah. I have a broad range of experience. So throughout, when I was 18 up until 2 years ago, I had done different part-time or long internships in banking, finance, journalism, human rights, like really, really broad fields. And I'm also a board member of 2 foundations. And I still love working with anything that's to do with international security, protecting human rights, everything that's ethical and has absolutely nothing to do with advertising. To answer your question, the way that I got into it is that I met Andrea, the co-founder CEO, at university in our undergrads. And we were working together on a project for our entrepreneurship class. And he just started telling me about his actual entrepreneurship project. And I thought, okay, I mean, I had not necessarily been into entrepreneurship before. Of course, knew a bit about the tech scene, but this was my politics and security undergrad. And then as he started talking about it, I just thought, okay, like this is actually pretty cool. And he's definitely fixing a problem and he's closing a gap, right? We're now in a zero-click era. No one is searching anymore.
No one's searching, yeah.
So we need to have these products show up in these conversations. And so, yeah, started from there, just doing little things left and right for Marco and Andrea. at the company. And as I grew into the role, just using my actual skills that I've had from my previous experiences, also my undergrad and my postgrad, it was very clear that I'm quite a good generalist and just an operator for the company. And so I started thinking a bit more deeply with Andrea and Marco about, what that means in terms of a title. Chief of staff fits very well because Andrea and I have quite a close bond in terms of how we work. And that means that, my whole role is to basically make him think only about the things he needs to think about. He has so many things in his mind, in his inbox, in his LinkedIn. So I need to kind of be the barrier to what goes to him, what doesn't, and do things on his behalf, think on his behalf. That's the chief of staff, towards Andrea, the CEO. But then more generally, just being an operator, a well-rounded generalist at the company is super important because you can have ideas, strategies, etc. You actually need to build around that. So with a background in, security politics and just understanding more of like the legal, ethics perception of it all, and then also being somewhat technical, it's actually quite easy to build, somewhat of an infrastructure for commercial and then technical as well. And, do all the things that are somewhat boring to other people, but I actually love them.
Brilliant, because this new role for young people is really cropping up. People being founders, associates, going to chief of staff. Is this generalist role in startups. And you mentioned that you really enjoyed talking with Andrea, but what advice would you have for other young people if they're to work under a founder as a founder's associate or a chief of staff role? What qualities should they be looking for?
Okay, interesting. I think every chief of staff will be somewhat different. It's hard to have one template per se. It really depends on the founder and also on the company. But I would say that you need to have a lot of agency. You're not necessarily going to be making decisions at, the CEO level, but you are going to be making decisions on what the CEO is going to be making decisions about. So you are the step before the CEO. So that's why it's a chief of staff, right? It's a C-suite level role. You need to be super alert. You need to be understanding everything that's going on in the company, and your brain is basically the heartbeat. And that heartbeat then needs to be replicated in somewhat of a model as well. So building different systems, making sure that everything is connected, that everything, everyone has everything they need, basically. So I would say you don't necessarily have to be technical in the sense that you know how to code. You don't have to be a programmer or, a software engineer or whatever. But you do need to be willing to learn. And you need to every single day know, okay, today I've learned about this tool. How am I going to implement it? I've heard this podcast. Is it relevant to me? You need to be thinking about everyone at the company and what they're doing and then implement.
So you came from a non-technical background and then you did a master's in AI. For other young people wanting to get technical, would you recommend a master's in AI?
I think there's two answers to that. I wanted to do a master's in AI because I wanted to learn very quickly in parallel to the company. So I was doing both at the same time,
Really?
which I
Wow.
do not recommend.
How crazy.
Honestly, I don't recommend, not at the stage. If you're in the very, very early stage, we are in the very early stages, but if you're in the first couple months, you're ideating, you're, starting to build a product, okay. If you already have the product built and you have clients, I would not recommend going to do a master's at this level of, of a role. But I will say that to me, education is the most important thing. Everyone who's saying, drop out to build your company, that's fun and games and, as a dream or as a thing that you just throw around. But in reality, you do need to stick through school. I think.
Why do you think that? Let's unpack that.
I did my undergrad and postgrad at UCL. We don't have classes for 10 hours a day, right? You do have enough time on the side to be going to different events, to be learning about how can I actually build a company. In your free time, when we have those 4 months of summer break,
Yeah, true, yeah.
go to SF. That's the one thing I would say. Yeah. I don't think drop out, but I think go to SF and build everything you can on the side of your undergrad. If you're in a postgrad, that's, I think, is more case by case. You don't need to have an actual master's to become technical. Like, we have so many connectors. You can build different automations. You can sync up via MCP of different, apps left and right. You don't need to be technical to do that at all. So I would say if your aim is to become technical in terms of understanding tech, that's very different. And that I would say, yes, do these short courses, watch as many podcasts as you want, actually try building different automations left and right, what's relevant to you. You don't need to go there and sit and learn Python or JavaScript at all.
But why do you think education's so important to you staying through school? Is that something your parents, sort of instilled in you?
I think my parents definitely instilled that in me. I also think that I've seen kind of how people grow. Of course, school is not for everyone. So there is, some cases where I would not be the one to tell you to stay in school. However, I do think that school teaches you the skills that are then transferable to work. They don't teach you at school how to, be a CEO or how to even do your taxes or anything around that. But it does teach you kind of the stepping stone onto being an adult.
Right. Yes.
So almost like being in the army, right? If you're in the army, you can really, really transfer those skills into a work life after. School is kind of the same. You have to be dedicated to get good grades, the same way that you have to be dedicated to get good results in your products.
So you think that building that muscle, that's what's useful?
100%.
Brilliant. And then you said that go to SF. There's been talk around UK culture versus SF culture. I've never been to SF and I'm starting a company. Why should I go to SF and not stay here?
It's the place to be. When you
Really?
land in SF, and I didn't understand this at first either before I went. When you land in SF, it's almost like your mind just automatically shifts and you want to build. Everyone is there to build. Everyone is driven, tunnel vision, but they're also very willing to help each other out. I'd say that's kind of the main difference that I've noticed.
I read that this guy, he got off the plane, met a guy and was invested in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
To think that could just not happen in the UK. Exactly. I don't think so.
Yeah. And when we were in Davos and my friend who's doing her own startup, she got a 100K check at a bar.
Like, you're kidding?
Like after at the end of an event, they went to a bar, like everyone who was at the event. And this guy was like, yeah, I want to angel invest. Here's 100K. Wrote her a check then and there.
There? No way.
Yeah. And he, of course, was from SF.
So you're now moving to
I'm
SF.
moving, yeah.
So do you think it's that bad? That it's not worth changing. It's not moving fast enough for me.
It's not moving fast enough.
Right.
Yeah. The motto of, Silicon Valley is to move fast and break things. So, yeah.
And
the
so we've
UK
lost
is
the talent.
Well, that's the thing, right? The UK and I think every country on this planet, it's not a lack of talent at all. It's just a lack of how that talent gets used, how it can actually build. If you don't have any investors, if you don't have, a sector that's willing to implement any sort of innovation, you're in the wrong place. It's not about your talents.
Oh, so you're saying like you got to change your environment. Have you always heard people say that if you feel stuck, it's not always about who you are. You've got
100%. It works in every category, even in your personal life, right? If you're surrounding yourself with bad people, you're not going to be pushed forward. And that's also a big thing about being a chief of staff. You need to make sure that the team works super well together. Yeah, the company culture is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing.
And you need to go where you're appreciated, right? This is such a cringy video I've seen on LinkedIn, but have you seen that violinist who's like world class, and when he's in the tube or the subway in America, no one's looking at him, but then in the night he sells out stadiums, and it's like he's got to change where he is, which is really cool. So you've come from Geneva to the UK and now you're moving to SF. So how was like growing up in Geneva?
It was really, really quiet. Really quiet. Geneva is a beautiful place and it's a very small town, yet you will always meet someone who has some sort of a link to Geneva. Yeah. I grew up, I come from a very multicultural family. I'm Ethiopian, Swedish, Spanish. So that in itself is amazing. Everyone in Geneva has some sort of a multicultural background as well. So you end up growing with really interesting people that shape you as a person and just in your work ethic as well. So that was great. I think I did, quite a normal childhood. Then I, did competitive dancing on the side of school, good grades, student council, that kind of like traditional path onto UCL, where I did security and politics in my undergrad. And every time, throughout all of these internships and, part-time roles that I've had, every time I was mentioning something about innovation or the future, tech was always coming up.
Yeah.
I've always liked math, and physics, sure, but I've never wanted to be an engineer. So when I told my parents that I wanted to do a master's in AI, they were like, "What? That makes no sense. You're gonna do machine learning and programming." And I was like, "Yeah." And it wasn't because they didn't believe in me. Of course, anyone can put their mind to it and do it. But it was more of a question of, why are you moving this way? And then they understood. Once I explained to them that tech is the future, like even my, the people who I know who are in finance,
They're
they
moving. Yeah.
need to know that, like, they know, right? So they know the stock market, like,
They
what
know
are the
where it's
best performing
moving.
stock.
Yeah.
It's tech. So everything is about tech. And so, yeah, that's why I moved in that direction.
Yeah, even loads of doctor friends have done a machine learning masters. They dropped out for a little bit because they realize, the world's moving that way. But as a female, this is not to sound patronizing in any way, but how do you not get intimidated by these sort of machine learning AI masters? Every time I see a woman in that field, I'm always like, yes. But how do you not feel? Because even I really like maths, but I still sometimes don't feel confident around these sort of guys that are like quite intense with it.
Yeah. That doesn't really go away.
Oh, okay, fair.
At least you need to, like, the fake it till you make it kind of
Right.
mentality that I think a lot of women have in mind, just because we have such imposter syndrome.
Yeah, being a female in tech, how do you deal with the imposter syndrome?
It's not something that you necessarily find that goes away, like, within the first couple of weeks. I think personally, this master's was even just a way to tell myself, okay, I have this piece of paper for my own ego, right? To kind of say, okay, I am worthy of calling myself somewhat technical.
Yeah.
But I think more broadly, again, it's about the people you surround yourself with. My whole team, Marco, who's our CTO co-founder, and Andrea, who's the CEO. Andrea's not necessarily, he doesn't have a background of, he's not technical in that way. He's not a programmer or software engineer. But they both told me that, you're somewhat technical. You understand what you're talking about. You understand what other people are talking about. Don't be scared to go to these events. There's one example where I was very, very scared of hosting an open claw event where I was going to explain to different people how I set up my open claw, etc., etc. And I had engineers sign up, like AWS engineers, and I was like, oh,
Scared, yeah.
interesting.
But do you know what someone told me? They said that because AI and all these tools are new, a lot of people are starting from scratch.
Yeah.
So actually, you do have something to
Yeah.
share with them because
Yeah, exactly. So everything that's an AI tool, I think traditional engineering won't teach you. So that's as if you're starting from scratch. Understanding it is a bit different, but then again, so you can get context quite quickly. I think the main thing was just being able to stand in a room with very technical people, but also only men. Only men. And I was like, okay, so am I going to just be the odd one out? But no, in reality, no one really cares.
Okay, you think that? Okay, first.
In reality, at least in the tech sector, it's not something where I've seen that women are looked down on. There's less women, but
it's not
they're
like
actually more appreciated because these, engineers, they want to come and talk to you and see kind of what you're about, right?
Yeah.
And at least that's my own experience. So it's been interesting to kind of talk to very, very technical people and, explain that I'm a humanist who codes somewhat.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're very interested usually. So I'd say that in other sectors it's very difficult. In tech, at least in the startup scene, it's kind of cool to have a girl in this field.
So two things you mentioned there. So do you think women make this more of a problem in their head than in real life? As in people actually
No.
appreciate when you get, oh, okay. Oh.
No. No. I think it's true that there's absolutely nothing to help women, like, get to the top, right? Just at a societal level, but also, more on, like, the personal, like, but how can you be a woman who's focused on her career and in this sector that takes on so much, and then you're still going to have friends or have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or this and that? No, there's, like, absolutely, these questions are not asked to guys.
No
The
way.
only thing I've seen is that most guys are now saying, like, no girlfriend until series B or something. Which
Yeah.
anyways, no.
What do you think about that? Relationships in while running a startup?
Okay, if you're running a startup, or if you're building anything at all, you need to be willing
Focused.
to sacrifice hours. Not sacrifice a person or relationship, but sacrifice hours. If you have a partner who is going to support you in any endeavor that you might take, that partner will know that they might just get 1 hour a day or 1 hour every couple days. But if they're there
that
for the
works-
long term, it's almost like angel investing, kind of.
Yeah, you invest in the potential. But what
Exactly.
if that potential doesn't work out? And you're
Exactly.
like,
Well,
that's the
then,
risk.
then that's the risk, right? And you need to be very, you need to, I think, just understand that this is what it is. Understand what a startup takes. Understand what it takes to build if you're not in that sector at all, or build with them.
Build with them. So how do you feel about 996 and the whole work-life balance and overworking, underworking? As someone who I can tell is obviously very ambitious, what are your thoughts on working?
It depends, of course, on the days. It's odd though, because 996 just means that, you get there, you work 996, but in reality, some days you'll work way more, some days you might work a little bit less. It's a very day-to-day kind of field. Being in a startup, you might have an issue that you can't fix for 3 days, so you will literally be there for 3 days and just work on that one thing. Of course you'll sleep.
Okay, first. I was
you'll
no, the
sleep.
thing is, I don't judge. Like, I want to hear your unfiltered experience. So if you're like, I don't sleep much, I know there's some people that don't. Feel free to. Would you advise if I'm trying to like really get to that next stage, like your company have raised a really good amount, you've employed really amazing people. Do you think that I should start sleeping less, doing what I need to do to get to the next level?
I don't think it just boils down to sleep itself.
Okay, yeah, first.
I think time management is the single-handedly most important skill ever. If you're able to work 6 hours and perform as well as as someone else would have done in 16, that's an asset, definitely. If you're able to kind of guardrail your time that way, I think that's the way to do it. Just be very efficient in your time. Not necessarily go in with a plan, because that doesn't exist in startups, but just be super efficient. Or if you know that you can delegate something, or if you know that you can wait 1 day or 1 hour, or do it by step, then do it that way. But it doesn't come down to sleep, it really comes down to efficiency.
Can you explain to me more about Roger for the audience?
Yeah, so he has been in retail media for many, many years. He's honestly one of the top voices in the industry.
He's a little older than you guys, isn't he?
Yeah.
And how did you bring someone with that level of expertise and how did you bring him on?
The same way that Andrea
Brought
brought everyone in.
Yeah.
He's definitely a force. No, they spoke.
Right. And he was like,
And Andrea told him what we're building, what we've done, what we are doing, and what we're moving towards. And I think Roger is a very, very smart man. He knows where, the whole sector is moving, and he wants to be part of it. So it just
said yes.
It made sense, yeah.
To be fair, if you guys not met Andrea, he could sell ice to Eskimos. Even that's how I invested, because I mean, it's not that I even asked for investment, but I was like, this guy is a bit crazy in the best possible way, and he's definitely going to make it
100%
happen.
He's crazy, but he's crazy in a good way. He's very passionate, but passion is not the only thing. I think, especially in a CEO, you wouldn't necessarily only want passion.
You've got to be passionate and competent, right?
Exactly. You need to really, really execute. You need to be able to like build a company and have people behind you who know exactly what they're doing, what they're building. And then everyone needs to have a bit of their passion.
Sure.
Right.
So what characteristics do you have as a chief of staff that maybe people could emulate if they want to be a chief of staff?
You need to be very strategic. So that kind of comes down to the decision making of what goes to who in the company. Have lots of agency as well. Of course, that kind of goes into that as well. Be able to learn very quickly. You need to learn about 100,000 different things every day, and you need to learn how to do them as well. So the context is one thing. You can understand something, but then you need to actually do it. So that comes down to, as chief of staff, you'll have a bit on the technical side, you'll have a bit on the legal side, a bit on the commercial side, admin, like all of the things. You need to learn how to basically make a company run.
Yeah.
At this stage, you don't have, accountants or lawyers or all of those people at hand, right? You can, of course, call up a law firm, but it'll cost you a certain amount. So I'm not saying go write up your own contracts and don't have like a legal counsel look over them.
Yeah.
But I am saying that as a chief of staff, your whole role is around making the company run.
And
Yeah.
do you use any AI tools to help you day to day?
Of course. Of course. We were joking about this the other day, saying that I am an AI tool to some people out there, which is kind of
AI
funny.
Alex.
It's kind of funny, but no, of course. Yeah, Claude is part of the team.
Is he? Oh, she. Why did I say he? Oh my gosh, my bias. Sorry. Okay.
No, I also think that
Yeah.
Claude is a guy. I think
Yeah.
Gemini is a girl.
Gemini's a girl. Gemini's a sweet girl.
Yeah. No,
Always-
but Claude, I have all of my connectors in there. And, you know, we have an agentic CRM as well. Like an AI CRM, which is super helpful. So there's just context everywhere. And the heartbeat is our CRM. Everyone uses Claude individually, but then we have and we are kind of building on top of our internal app. So that's where you get everything. And that is connected via all of the tools that we use.
Give us an insight into this stuff.
So the engineers will use, you know, Codex, Claude, Linear, all the traditional like engineering apps. On the commercial side, there's lots of Claude. We have a Thrad MCP, so that means that we can really, you know, talk to our platform. So you don't need to code and go into, you know, SQL into ClickHouse to just query one of the databases. You can do it actually in plain text in Claude because you have the MCP.
Right.
Exactly.
So it's just your your brain everywhere, like it's connecting all back to Claude.
Exactly.
So Claude is like that central.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so use a lot of that. And then of course you have all of the automations that I built via NA10. I think it's like a great tool.
So you're really proficient at NA10?
I'm obsessed with NA10. Really? I've been using it for 10 months now. Yeah. So.
And how did you upskill yourself? Did you just like play around with it?
Yep. Play around, watch, go on YouTube. Like YouTube is the place to.
Yeah, it's really difficult to stay on top of all these AI trends, tools. You know, what would you tell someone who's feeling a bit overwhelmed, i.e. me? Like,
yeah, no, I think there are lots of tools, which is both good, but also can get you very, very confused and lost. Based on your context, you know, of what you're wanting to build, what sector you come from, I'd say just talk to Claude or your preferred LLM and just kind of say, you have context on me, what I do, what I want to move towards. What are the best tools? Here's a list of what I've heard. Are these relevant to me? And then you'll find out that, you know, they can or can not be.
But do you ever get... people always say, ask Claude to tell you what should I do based on what you know about me, about my future, or maybe what I should look for in a partner, like all these personal stuff. Like, do you think it's like worth having a computer tell you these
days?
No.
Okay, no. I don't think the decision in your personal life, but never leave that up to AI.
Oh, okay,
I'm very much against like the actual decision-making power of an LLM. Like, I've seen this both on just from academia, from like that perspective, but also in real time, the way that it's moving. Claude now will not, by the way, if you try and go, if you're a student and you put your assessment into Claude will not do your assessment for you.
Really? Why not?
He will say, it says assessment, I cannot do this for you. I can help you out, but I cannot do this for you. It'll say, oh, it's a category 1 or category 2 at this university, which means I cannot do it.
Oh, wow. I didn't know they had that in place.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even if you ask legal advice, it will say, I'm not your lawyer. I cannot make this decision for you. I can show you exactly how to do it, but that's it. So I think even these like AI companies have realized that people will just rely on anything.
Too much, yeah.
And that kind of goes into what we'll probably talk about later, but I think trust is the most important thing. So trust your LLM to, guide you in a way that you have all of these tools and your LLM can tell you this one, that one are the best ones for you in your case. Try them out. Don't take it at face value. In terms of relationships, don't trust.
So, do you ever go to an LLM with like hey, I've been through this. What sort of advice would you give in this situation?
Yes,
Yeah, first, so do I.
but only to kind of get an answer that I'll say, yeah, that's not what I'm looking for. I think if you make a project or you build, an agent or something that's has pure context on, if we're talking about more therapy wise, context on therapy, on, psychiatry, all of that, then yeah, sure, I'm sure that an LLM can be a great therapist. And
If it has
I know
context
some
on
cases,
people.
yeah, and I know some cases that are really, really good with people that have built projects and say like only take context from these doctors or these therapy sessions, like recordings or whatever it might be. From that, it's really good. But if you just give it to the world to take context from, it doesn't know. It doesn't know what you're talking about.
It doesn't know sometimes, yeah.
No.
It's totally lost at
Yeah.
times. Yeah. And curious, this is just to go into a bit of the deeper parts of running a startup, but what are some of the hardest days that you've gone through?
I think the hardest days are just when the energy is down, which happens.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, because you can't. Hard to be 100% all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that we're not there grinding. And there's always one person who will. It's very much of a trade, right? It's like if your energy is down, mine is up. I'll give you a bit of my energy, and then we can kind of come to some sort of equilibrium. But yeah, hard days, of course. We have clients, we have a tech product, so of course there are hard days. But what is most important and really what we focus on is just how do we kind of move on from there? How do we make sure that there is a clear communication internally, but also towards the clients. At this stage, our clients are our partners. We build with them, for them, and we're trying to make sure and we are making sure that our product is giving them the best value.
So how can a client use your product? Can you take us through their journey?
Of course. You can go on our website right now and launch a campaign within a single prompt.
Really?
Yeah. That means that we will then build out a campaign for you based on the URL that you've provided, whether that's, your brand, a specific product. And then you can launch directly. So it takes you a couple minutes to actually just build and then launch into an LLM. What's interesting is that, of course, we're just scraping your URL. If you then want to edit it manually, you can do that. But you can build different ads around different products, all within the prompt. Or if you have a campaign brief and you hand that in. But
So basically, I have a AI technical ghostwriting agency where we write LinkedIn posts for AI founders. And if I was to come to you and I want to appear more in LLMs, how can I make that happen?
yeah. We can take ChatGPT as an example, just because that's the most known LLM that we're advertising in. So when you prompt ChatGPT right now, you have your message, and then you'll get an answer from the LLM, right? We're not showing up in that answer.
Cool.
We're appearing as a sponsored message or a sponsored poll or a sponsored prompt right underneath. So if you
I see.
yeah, so it just shows up as a little ad format at the very bottom. Of course, you always need to say that it's sponsored. You always need to follow the rules of basic advertising to just let the user know that it is a placement.
So what would someone be searching if they wanted technical ghostwriting, and why is it at the bottom? I'm just curious, like what would they see?
Yeah,
It's
so if I'm a founder
Mhm.
and I want someone to write my LinkedIn post for me, for instance, I would probably write, something like, help me rewrite my LinkedIn post.
Oh, right.
And then ChatGPT will rewrite your LinkedIn post, and then you might appear. Why don't you try, what's the name of
It's called Nova Impact.
Nova Impact.
Mm.
And then
I
you'll have your ad
see.
there.
So would that come after the first message that like how
After the answer of the LLM.
how does Thrad know that this is the right time to show them this ad?
Based on context. So we look at, there's different ways that we look at it, but our tech is cold.
So how much would it cost, and then when could I see results from that advertising?
There's no minimum ad spend.
Oh, really?
With us, so you can launch at any price. Of course, there's, different recommendations depending on who you are, where you want to advertise. And you could see it. It takes us like two days to actually look through the campaign brief, make sure that it's, ethical, legal, etc. And then you'd be launched in your preferred LLM that we have as a publisher.
Really, there's no minimum spend. Is there an amount you would recommend? Like, if you want to get in front of these amount of founders, you would need to spend £2,000.
Of course, yeah.
Right.
But
okay.
that comes, once you've set everything up, once we have the products in mind, you have your goal if it's more, top of funnel or bottom funnel. So yeah.
Yeah. And anyone who wants to build a company, what's been some of the best bits of building a company that you could just say, hey, this is what's to come?
It's the coolest and funnest thing you can do. Really, I think that enough going to work at 9, coming home at 5, like putting on a suit.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, I respect everyone's career and everyone's choices. But start your company. Like
Yeah.
it's, every idea matters. If you have a solution to a problem and you're thinking, oh, it's too hard to build, no, try it, please. I beg you at this level.
Because it's tough.
It's tough. But we're young, we're ambitious, and it's good to have a place to store all that energy. So
yeah. Because what else? People always ask, "Oh, why do you work?" And I'm not working as hard as you guys, but like, why do you work so much? But it's like, what else would I do? I'll come home and maybe scroll TikTok or
exactly. Yeah.
It's good to put this energy somewhere. And is there anything your friends say about you building company? Do you still have time to see your friends? And
yeah. Not as much as before, of course, but my friends are very understanding. And I think that comes down to, surrounding yourself with the right people, both at work, so you feel like you're working with friends.
Nice. Yeah.
And then outside of work, so that, you have your friends that support you and that just want the best for you. And they know that this is what you're passionate about. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, Alex, it's been great to have you.
Yeah,
it's been
thanks
great
for
to hear
having
all
me.
your hot takes and life at Thrad. So thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me.